All right, we got a user story. We basically want to have a standard naming convention. Feel free to read this entire user story if you will. And the acceptance criteria we have is as follows. Given a new or updated record in the gift transaction object, we already have some information here. We have two scenarios: when the record is created and the other when the record is updated, and we know which object this should be. When the record is saved, then the system should automatically apply the following format: donor name, donation amount, and donation date. From this acceptance criteria, we conclude that we have four scenarios. The first is when a record gets created, and then if it is an existing record and the donor changes, if it is an existing record and the donation amount changes, existing record and the donation date changes. So we have four scenarios. Okay, let's build this. Let's navigate to the gift transactions object. You can search for that object here. It doesn't have where you open the object from. And the expected result is when people create a new record or edit an existing record, and instead of saying some strange name or some good name, but they are not following a consistent formatting, we would like everything to follow the same format that we had highlighted in the acceptance criteria. I'm gonna go to the gear icon and then edit object. And then I will go to flow triggers and new flow. From here, we start a record triggered flow. From the acceptance criteria, we know that we need this to run whenever a record is created or updated. When we start a flow this way, it automatically starts a record triggered flow and pre-populates the object here. And then we know that we need this to be on create or on update. I'm gonna go all the way down to the optimization part. I'd like this to run in before save or fast field updates. And this means that we would like the naming to happen before the record is committed to the database. And in the context of created or the created part of this, then we don't have an ID yet. Until the transaction completes, there is no ID associated with this record. Now let's go ahead and set up some entry conditions. You almost always want to set entry conditions. You don't want the flow to run every time something happens. You want it to run only when the relevant information changes, is applied, is met, to make sure that you reduce the number of times this flow runs. Let's look at the condition requirements. We have a few types. You can select and, meaning all the conditions should be met, or this is when we need, whenever one of these conditions is met, we would like this to run. If you'd like to use both of them together, you can use custom condition logic is met. You can write a formula as well, which gives us access to some resources that are not available in the other ones. The one we will look at for now is or. I'd like any of the following four scenarios. Whenever any of those happen, we would like this flow to run. And the first one is when there is no ID. The ID is null, true. I'm sorry, when there is no ID. Meaning, you see, we have two different situations here. It's either a new record or it is an updated record. How do we know that it is a new record? If there is no ID, it means it's a new record, and I would like this flow to run in that case. And the second thing is when the donor changes. If it is changed, and then I will the operator is changed, and then the value is the global constant true. If the donor changes, we would like this to run as well. And then the other values are the original amount, if it ever changes, and the completion date. If that ever changed, then we would like this to run. One thing you will come across when you attempt to create a new gift transaction, you would notice that the donor field doesn't say if this is a contact or an account, because in Nonprofit Cloud we use person accounts, meaning this donor field could be a business account and could be a person account. Meaning when we set the donor name in the name, then that donor name could be a person account. In that case, we need first name and last name. And it could be a business account, and in that case we need the account name instead. Okay, now let's go ahead and construct that new name. And if we were to create a new resource, I'm going to go ahead to the resource panel to the left side, start a new resource, and then select a formula because I'm manipulating the values, the data. So I want to use formulas, and this should return a text. I'm going to name it fx underscore like whatever return type is. I have a whole naming convention. We can talk about this later. And then this is new gift transaction name. Okay, now let's write it in just a plain English for now. We would like the donor name plus donation amount plus completion date. And we know that for the donor amount, this could be if it could be if business account, then we need the account name. If it is person account, then we need this to be first name plus last name. So this is what the formula should be like. Let's start writing these things down here. Let's actually make it a formula. We're gonna delete this eventually. This part here, as you see, it's an if statement. If this, then that. If this, then that. Let's add an if statement here. So this is an if statement, and then we need to check if the donor is a business account or not. And to do that, we're gonna go from the gift transaction to the donor field, and on the donor field, check the record type, and if that record type name is business or not. So first, let's go to record type field. In the inserting resource box here, I want to find this global variable record. All of these are global variables. Whenever you see a $, that's a global variable, and the global variable record is the record that started this flow. In this case, this is the gift transaction that started this flow. And from here, I want to find the donor field. And remember, because the donor is a parent to the gift transaction, we could access it. And on the donor, I want to look for the donor record type. And on the record type, I'm going to check the developer name. I always check the developer name, not the label of the record type, because people might go and change the label of the record type. And now I'm going to go grab the developer name of the record type. You don't want to type it down to reduce the chances of typos. So I'm going to go to the account object and then record types. I did some cleaning in here. There should be only one business account, and because person account is set up, it doesn't show up in here, but person account is a record type of account as well. So this is the one that's currently active. I'm gonna select this and copy in the record type developer name. All right, so what we're saying here, if the account, the donor record type is business account, then we need to have the donor account name. Donor account name. Else, then it must be a person account. And if it is a person account, then we're gonna need to grab the donor first name, and then plus, I'm gonna add a space, and then plus donor again, and then last name. And I will also add another space here. Now you notice already that it's getting long, and I am not a fan of big complex formulas. I would rather group them into smaller formulas. So I'm gonna take this part here, which is the donor name only, and I will create another formula for it. So let's just copy all of this and copy all of this, because I'm gonna need to create this again. Let's create a new resource, and let's name this donor name only. So this is just donor name, and that donor name is the formula that we just built. So I'm gonna delete everything, and I'll just keep the formula. So this here is the formula, is the donor name only. Now let's construct the gift transaction name, the record name itself, which is what we were doing, which is this. And now we don't, instead of like referencing all of this, I'm just gonna use the formula that we created earlier. That's the formula here. And the reason I name it with fx at the beginning is that to group all of formulas below each other, and I can just type fx to get all the formulas to be displayed in here. So that's the donor name. See, instead of writing all of this, I've just got like this small piece down here. And then after that, let's just now clean this a little bit. Now we need to add the donation amount. That's the gift transaction amount, and we want to grab the original amount and then the completion date, record completion date. Now let's delete all of this, and we're gonna get an error if we validate this formula, and that error is because the amount is a currency, is of data type currency, and we're saying that this formula should return a text. It's expecting a text, but this is a currency data type and this is a date data type, so we need to convert these two to text. And to do that, you can use this function text to convert dates and currencies to text. So I'm just gonna add text here, text and text. You would want to have any functions in uppercase just to distinguish between record names and variables and the functions that you're using. Text, it's not like the capitalization is not required, it's just helpful in terms of reading. All right, so we converted these two to text. Now it's valid. We can click done, and this formula constructs this name when it gets called. It doesn't just calculate and store. We need to call it, and we're gonna call it and store that result of this formula on the name of the gift transaction. So we're gonna use an assignment element for this, and we're gonna say assign gift transaction name. Let me just add these in here, and then let's talk about them. I'm gonna grab the gift transaction name, and then I'll set that value to be the formula that we created, new gift transaction name. So what we're doing here is that we're taking, it works from right to left. Even though we populated it from left to right, it actually works from right to left. So you take that value that is calculated from the formula, and then you put it into this triggering record name field. So now that we have called the formula to take whatever output and store it into that name, it's going to calculate when the flow runs and gets to this point. You can find the record that started this flow by searching for the word record. You see, like, there is no word record here, but because it's a global variable, we've seen the word record before with the $sign, and you can search for triggering, and then you're going to get to that triggering gift transaction. We already put the gift transaction, and you can access the fields. Once you click on that, you can access the fields, and we selected the name in here. So we're taking the output of the formula, and then we're putting that output into that name field. Let's save, and then let's name this auto name gift transactions. One thing I want to call here is that we didn't use an update element. The reason we didn't use an update element is because this flow runs in before context. The flow has not been committed to the database yet, so using an assignment actually changes that data, so it will actually populate the name field before the record is committed to the database. Let's activate this. We could debug and troubleshoot here, but let's go ahead and deactivate for now. Let's go to gift transactions, and let's attempt to create a new gift transaction. Let's just put anything in here. Let's select, this is a business account, and I'm gonna select business under gift type, and let's not put a completion date for now. Let's say 600, and then check and save. We've got dummy business account, and then there is no space here. Let's go ahead and fix that. We're gonna go to that formula, and after the what did we have? So after the name, there is no space, even though, okay, so we added a space after the last name, but we didn't add a space after the business account name. So let's add a space here, and let's go to the gift transaction name, and let's add a space after the amount as well. And that's it. Let's save as a new version. You're gonna have to save as a new version. If you activate it, you will have to save any updates to a new version before you can activate it. Now let's activate again. I'm sure you're building in a sandbox or in just a development org or a trial org, not in an actual live instance of Salesforce. Okay, let's go ahead and try again. I'll try the same thing. Dummy business account, and then anything here, and then cash and save. Okay, we didn't get the account name. Let's troubleshoot this together. Did we do something wrong in here? The donor name? Okay, I added the space in the condition, and instead of adding it to the account name. Let's move this to a new line like this, and then let's move this to a new line as well. So we know that this line here is the, feel free to add comments as well. This line here is for the if the condition, that's the condition, and then if that condition is met, that's the result, and if it's not met, then that's the result. Just to make it more clear. Let's save and activate. Then going back here, let's just clone this to save time, and we'll just put anything in here and save. All right, now it's working. We've got the account name and the amount. Remember, there is always a reason. You always need to test multiple scenarios and positive cases and negative cases. Let's make some changes. Let's change this to an individual, and let's say Sarah, and then save. It should trigger, so it has updated this. Let's update this to that we actually received the payment, and set the completion date to 26, and we've got that up and running.